Dana plane crash in Lagos, and of course, by all means, touch on to other matters. But we'll start off with this report about it, and we'll continue thereafter.
Gege in panic. A huge plume of smoke hovers over their environment on the heels of a massive metallic impact out of the sky. It's a McDowell Douglas 83 aircraft owned by Dana Airlines, Flight 0992, which took off from Abuja. Destination Murtala Mohammed Airport, Lagos. Tragically, the plane does not just miss the runway, it literally tumbles far short of it, leaving carnage in its wake.
About 2-4. What happened here? Okay, we just saw a plane come and land on the warehouse here, including a two-story building. And the next thing we hear is explosion. So that's why people rush here to rescue people. Where there's passenger inside. One of them make up with his family that he was trapped inside the plane.
My younger ones, they were outside playing ball, and they were shouting that I should leave there. Look at plane want to land on top of my head, so I have to just leave there a little. And the plane immediately he passed. When the plane passed, he went, it bended, and we thought the plane was going to land. And the plane, the next thing it went again, and it slowed down. The next thing we just had a sand. Immediately we had a sand. That was when we noticed the plane has already crashed.
It was indeed a chilling scene, but at this moment the people in the community, as well as emergency and rescue workers, are united in their concern for the stricken plane and its unfortunate victims. In the midst of the heart-wrenching scenes, a distraught aviation minister, clad in mourning attire, tearfully gives an official account of what transpired.
At about 3:43 p.m. local time, Dyna Flight 0992 from Abuja to Lagos declared emergency. A call for Mayday with Lagos Control Tower at about 11 nautical miles. A minute later, the aircraft disappeared from the air traffic control radar. The flight was found to have crashed into a residential building at Idu area of Lagos. At this time, as I speak to you, no survivor has been found. May their soul rest in peace. That their soul will rest in peace, and that God will grant them eternal peace. We pray that their families will have the strength to bear this huge loss. The federal government of Nigeria will institute a very, very thorough investigation to find out exactly what happened and to ensure we don't have reoccurrence of this ever again.
Back at the crash site, even as daylight wanes, giving way to darkness, the crowd is dispersed, and the dwindling tempo of rescue operations reflects the fading hopes of finding any survivors amid the debris of buildings damaged by the crashed plane.
Well, there you have it. Very sad indeed. Perhaps more so when you hear the backstory, the history concerning this particular McDonnell Douglas MD-83 aircraft of Dana Air. Well, we're joined now by Sonnie Ekwowusi, who is a member of the editorial board of this day newspapers. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much.
Well, You were also in this plane, not this flight.
Not this flight. I mean this.
But because we had
criminal-
complaints from people who had boarded that same plane, not this particular flight,
Yeah.
but they had the experiences. Yours was one
Chamberlain,
of those.
I think that it was the same flight I boarded, the same plane I boarded about 2 weeks ago, about 1.5 weeks ago, and when I came back to Lagos, I complained I couldn't stand it, and I sat down the whole night and wrote an article which was published last Wednesday, and in this day newspaper, and obviously calling on the authorities to do something to improve our aviation services, and also calling on the presidency to invest in aviation safety, and then also saying that one air crash is worth everything. It's worth everything. The socio-economic cost and trauma of one air crash is something that the nation cannot afford to contend with. And unfortunately, that call was not heeded. And yesterday we heard that unfortunate news. It's so unfortunate that we don't do anything. We complain only after the disaster has happened. The last crash was in 2006. The large commercial air crash was 2006, the one involving the ADC crash. And since then, God has been so kind to spare us for the crashes and for the commercial crashes, and we failed to do anything. We failed to do nothing. Nothing was done, and then this happened yesterday. Chamberlain, I feel a sense of outrage, and the whole nation. Today, money has been declared and all that. I think it's not sufficient. It's not sufficient. We should take steps to do something to improve our aviation services. Otherwise, I'm not trying to be negative. Otherwise, we are going to experience another one. It's not just enough to lament it. We have to take steps to ensure that another crash does not happen.
Even now talking about your write-up and warning the nation, especially after your experience, which you will tell us more graphic details of that particular experience on that aircraft before it finally crashed. Someone had called and someone had also tweeted all the way from Akwa Ibom his experience on that same aircraft to our program. Yes. And if you say you've written and people have actually complained and nothing was done to recall that aircraft from the fleet of Dana.
When we are about to take off, I'm sure it's the same plane because, Dana
Tell
Airlines,
us the experience.
Dana Airlines has only
ago.
about 3 or 4 commercial aircraft. We're about to take off. In the first place, we were delayed for 2 hours at the airport because, we were just there. Eventually, when we were boarding, I noticed that the plane was completely down. An old plane. I'm sure it was about 25 years. I just read that the plane is about 22 years. But I'm sure that plane was about 25 years. And the Nigerian government has said since 2002 that no plane that is above 22 years should fly Nigerian airspace. So I'm surprised that plane was allowed to fly in the first place. So as we were boarding, and I felt very uncomfortable because everything was decrepit and all that. I went to the toilet, everything was yakking off, and I felt that something was wrong. I couldn't come down because it was too late. If it were a car, I was in the car, I would have loved to come down, but I couldn't come down. When we were about to take off, I heard a funny noise by the cockpit. And I couldn't believe it. And I said, look, is that the way I'm going to die? And I started praying. Throughout the flight, I was constant in prayer. Anyway, luckily, as God wills it, we landed safely in Lagos. When I came down, I said, look, something must be done. This plane ought not to fly again. And I sat down. I wrote the article the whole night. I did my research. And the next day I was about to make further phone calls. The article was published last Wednesday. And I was calling on the authorities to do something.
On which of the dailies?
This day newspaper, Wednesday, that was Wednesday last week, my column, that's where the article appeared. And if you read the article is saying that, look, we should do something. We should not wait until a crash occurs before we take action. Something will happen. If that call was heeded, I think that the plane crash of yesterday was avoidable plane crash. Even my article, notwithstanding, over the last few years, people have been calling on the authorities to do something about aviation services in the country. And nothing happened. And of course, you know very well that the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria, the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, have been in some hard crisis in this thing of management of aviation services and all that. And it appeared something was being done, but nothing was done. You go to the airport, you find that the flight are delayed, at times cancelled, you know. And then the planes are old planes, you know. The airports are not well maintained, you know. And so we're not surprised that this happened yesterday because we saw it coming. So what we are saying is that efforts should be made, real efforts should be made, not just to lament it, you know. After 2 or 2 weeks, we all relapse into our stupor and then for another disaster to happen. I think real effort, I would suggest that there should be a shake-up in the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria and also Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority.
Sorry for before you go on. You seem very certain that this was the same plane you had taken.
I think because Dana only flies only about 3 or 4 commercial airplanes.
What makes you sure that it wasn't another aircraft?
I do not. I certainly think that is the same one because this
but
one.
It was a Dana airline.
It was a Dana, of course, certainly Dana airline. That one I boarded was very old. I'm going to check the number. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be the same because they have only about 2 or 3 airlines that flies Nigerian airspace. What we are saying is that all planes should not be allowed to fly in the first place. Most of the airlines that flies Nigerian airspace
it's very important that we're able to say, okay, this is, you know, it has to be the same plane because maybe they have 2 other new planes and this is the only old one that they have.
Okay,
or maybe this is not a true reflection of the state of all their aircrafts, you know. But you've made, you know, sweeping general comments about the Nigerian aviation industry. This crash, is it symbolic of what, for you, is it symbolic of what the management that will find, the management of our aviation sector, as it were? Because some people would say that this might not be a reflection of...
No, it's complete reflection because, I mean, this flight, I mean, when the first flight, the first aviation aircraft occurred in Nigeria in 1969, since then, we have experienced about 53 air crashes. And the studies that have been carried out have shown that these crashes are attributed to poor runway management and poor radar equipment, and then poor maintenance of the aircraft. Poor maintenance of the aircraft. I'm certainly sure that this is a reflection of the poor organization of our airport authorities, the poor way that FAN is run, and the poor way NCAA, that is Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, is being managed. When the last air crash occurred in 2006, there was a kind of shake-up. I mean, some airlines were suspended from flying and all that. In fairness to FAN and NCAA, there was a kind of regulation, a kind of improvement. But shortly after that, they all relapsed into their stupor. Nothing was happening, and I'm sure you fly. We're experiencing when you go to the airport, you find that everything is wrong. I mean, starting from the way the airport and people are rushing and disorderly and confusion and that. And then when you enter the airlines, in the first place, the flight cancellation is evidence of something. Evidence that the planes are run like taxis. They pick passengers from airport. It ought not to be done that way. There should be a flight schedule, and that schedule should not be tampered with. So this is a true reflection of disorganization, mismanagement, a true reflection of, I would say, human development crisis, because we don't value anything in this country. Everything goes. And it's very unfortunate that we are toying with human lives. We are toying with human lives. We don't take care of little simple things. Yeah. So I would finally say that this crash it certainly has to do with human failure, gross negligence, poor maintenance of the aircraft.
Speaking of which,
if that aircraft had been serviced well and looked well, it wouldn't have, because it has gone to Lagos.
Maybe you didn't see the publication, because they also said that the Lagos station manager of the same aircraft, the same airline, brought some sort of complaint about that same MD-83 aircraft and said this aircraft needed to be grounded, and that was, let me check, it was on May 3rd.
Exactly.
And so he raised the red flag. The management, according to the publication, ignored it. Exactly. Then there was another scenario on May 11, 2012. It was also ignored, and regulation comes in here.
Regulation comes in, and we have poor regulatory system, and because of corruption as well, because these people who are involved in regulation don't even ensure that these institutions do what they are supposed to do. If they had been complaining about this particular plane, I'm sure several people have complained, nothing was done. And now we are crying wolf. I think we are not serious in this country, because if we are serious, this should have been prevented. We are sorry that it has happened, but at the same time, we should take further steps, now concrete steps. First of all, I recommend a shake-up at FAN, a shake-up at NCAA. We should, the positions of these people should be advertised so that competent hands should apply and take up these positions. We can't toy with human lives. And like I rightly said, I'm not trying to be negative, as I said, but if we are not careful, we are going to experience another one, because we are not careful in this country. We are very careless. We are very careless people, and that was happening. Because, like I said, if it had gotten to Lagos, it was about landing and then crash onto buildings. It means that maybe something that was not there, that was not taken care of, that should have taken care of, was not taken care of. And we have this poor maintenance attitude in this country. For instance, if a knot of the tire of your car is falling and you go to your mechanic and say, "Oh, guy, you can manage it." This you can manage this mentality. It happens also in running of the airline. And this is unfortunate, because airline is something that flies in the air. And if anything occurs, we're just finished. So it's about this thing of not taking care of small little things. We have a poor maintenance culture in this country.
Another thing,
and it's reflected in this.
Mr. Ekwowusi, another thing we saw yesterday from the minister's address to the nation was, she talked about when they called for May Day, and later on it disappeared from the radar. And we thought we had this total radar coverage. Since the plane disappeared from the radar, what could have happened? I know you're not an aviation expert.
I'm not an expert.
Yes, but again, people have been asking, does that mean that it doesn't work the way it should work?
Of course, it means that. Like I said that since 1969, people have always been complaining about a radar problem. I mean, radar problem in the sense that it's not, we're not so sure, it's not well managed. Also, lightning of the airport, the last, the Sosolisok crash was attributed to poor management of the airport, because shortly before the crash, there was no electricity supply at the airport. And after the crash occurred, there was no water to put off, the fire. And so those kids, those students of loyal Jesuits, were burned to death because there was no water, simple water. I'm saying that this has to do with human development crisis. I'm mentioning that, that development is not only about building roads and skyscrapers, also the human being, the human mind. In this country, we are still lagging behind in development crisis. And the essence of, epicenter of development is human development. And we lack it in this country. Not enough to say that we are lowering, we are in democracy. Democracy for what? When the human beings are not thinking properly, are not reasoning properly, are not taking care of small little things that we should take care of, we don't do that. This, you see it at the airport. All of us will fly, and when you go to the airport, you see things happening. The toilet is dirty, the timetable is not kept, people are running here and there, scatter. What kind of people are we? Can't we live order? Can't we manage ourselves?
Well,
so this is what I'm saying. This is something
the sector, one wonders, because, here it is, now we're spending so much money trying to, what they call it now, make over the airports in the country. But billions have been spent previously. Remember the Aviation Intervention Fund? After the crash occurred, that money was pushed in. But now there are so many questions being asked about it. And then some monies were also deployed. Eventually, they acquired the total Tracon. Comes into question again. But these same officials, FAN and some of them, if not NCA, you see how they conduct themselves when you park indiscriminately along the area.
Of course, they're all interested in collecting, taxes and charges from passengers at the airport. This issue of aviation safety, they don't even care about that. They're just extorting money. Last time I was flying, I think it was last year, I had a row with some of them because they were extorting money from us. I was saying, for what? Take care of aviation safety, take care of the airport environment, take care of the planes, the conditions of the planes. You're not doing that and you're extorting money. So that's what we are saying, that the management of FAN should be called to account for what has happened. They should not go scot-free.
We're talking about institutions and how weak they are, because the NCA, the FA, and because, for a sector as that, because, it's so unique, because this is an international flights coming here, they've got their IATA regulation, and they tell us time and again that they've met all the stipulations, yet, this Dana airline, there have been lots of complaints for weeks, consistently, about this airline.
And nothing was done.
And it looks as though nothing was done, because from what we see now,
many passengers complain.
Nothing was done.
I think the Nigerian crisis is a crisis of dysfunctional institutions. It's not just FAN or NCA, but other institutions, the education sector, the energy sector, all sectors. And you can't run a country with weak institutions. And there have so many complaints about Nigerian poor aviation services in this country, and nothing was done until yesterday. And God has been so kind since 2006, when the last one occurred, the last commercial air crash occurred. And God has been so kind to spare us the agony of further air crashes. Until yesterday, that it happened. It means that these institutions are not living up to expectations, and we cannot run a country with weak institutions. So we are saying that if people had been complaining, passengers have been complaining, and I complained, and nothing was done, it showed that we are not serious.
Let me
So
jump
I
in
was
here.
saying,
Does it mean then that if they focus their regulation, and do they focus on the international airlines, perhaps, to ensure that they meet up to the standards, because
that is
they'll be
obvious,
going
because,
above much more than the local ones?
Aviation have the same standard all over the world, and all authorities, institutions should keep to the same aviation standards all over the world. You don't have to ship. You don't have to lower your standard.
Yeah, but look at the way it happens. I mean, even these airlines, the ones that fly internationally,
Yes.
look at the standards of the way they operate with international flights.
Obviously.
It's different from the way they handle the local flights.
That's what we're
Why?
saying. That I mean, it's because they have to. I mean, they have to. They have to comply, or they have to follow the Nigerian way of this thing of poor maintenance and all that. Because Nigeria, everything happens. I was talking about human development crisis in this country. We chip in everything. Fine, international standard, they are careful, but here, because you can get away with practically everything in this country, you can disobey the law with impunity and nothing happens.
That's a sad comment.
And so what happens is that they come here and they're shipping the standards. Foreign organizations here, that's what they do as well. They come here, they lower the standard because they know that Nigerians are used to low standards. We're saying that that is completely unacceptable. They have to comply with international standards. And the reason why they don't comply is because of corruption and because of everything. So it's so sad that it's happening this way.
Can I ask a question? I mean, as a flyer, as one who tries to fly, does anything inform your choice of, aircraft, or, the airline you decide to go with?
We have very few choices, because even if you want to fly aero, you want to fly, I'm not sure that all the aircraft are new aircraft. They have been told since 2002, the federal government said no aircraft that is 22 years old should fly. But they didn't obey that. They were not obeying that.
So you think
they don't have much options, because
that's all the airlines?
They don't have much options, because they are all running head-to-head. They are all now interested in maximizing their profits, and that's why you see all these flight delays and cancellations and all that, because they are picking passengers here, here and there. We don't have much options. What we are saying is that even if you have two airlines, they should acquire new aircraft. There should be new aircraft. If you have new aircrafts, if they are new aircrafts and they are two, no problem. But the aircrafts are not new. They are not properly maintained. So it's not a matter of having plenty. Few, but well managed and well managed. If a flight arrives, there should be time for the plane to be serviced, to be looked into, before it takes off again. A plane don't just land, and then the next moment you are taking off just like that.
Again, no, it's not. That has to do with regulation.
Because then, once upon a time, when a plane lands, you see everyone
rushing and all that. It's not done that way. It's about regulation.
But I haven't seen that.
Oh, it's happening. It's happening again. I mean, last time I was here, airport, they say, so and so plane has arrived, and passengers rushing here and there. You wait, let the plane be.
I'm talking about the rushing of the technicians, everyone.
Oh, they haven't that.
Do their checks,
they fire people running to look at it. That's the normal thing. When we were growing up, I mean, I remember the days of Nigerian Airways. That's what you see at the airport. Go to the airport. Whenever a plane arrives, the fire brigade arrive, and people arrive, to see that the plane is routine check before the plane takes off. But these days, you don't find that. The plane is just interested in taking off the next moment. We're saying that is not proper. Something serious ought to have been done. And we are lamenting it now. It shouldn't end with this lamentation. It should go beyond that by ensuring that the aviation industry is reorganized, properly reorganized, so that we should not experience any further commercial air crashes. One is enough to wreck the economy, to wreck the economy. Imagine the trauma. Family of 7 perishing, That to me is so serious. It's so serious. It's so serious. The trauma we're going to live with for so many years, so many years, so many years.
What do you think about the rescue? I mean,
Oh, the rescue. That is really. I was taking that in Port Harcourt in 2006. So it's a flight. When that fire incident occurred, the rescue was so poor. This one, the same thing. I heard that somebody, a trial passenger, made a telephone call to his relatives to come and rescue him, and there was no rescue. There was no rescue. We don't react. The what is it called now? The Airport Management Authority, or what is it called now? Excuse me. They don't react in time. The fire brigade were not. People were using water to quench the fire.
But I think we're getting conflicting report there. Because what we hear in some quarters was that the fire service, they were there in good time, but again the crowd as well as the it collapsed almost like inside buildings. Yeah, so it was absolutely difficult for them to get in. So it brings to mind the kind of training and facility we do have to get to such
by the time
disasters
the black
or
box has been
accidents.
recovered, we're going to know the details, later. But what we are saying, what I'm still saying is that it has to do with gross human negligence. I mean, even the plane crashing in the first place, after it crashed, what do we do? Rescue has to be swift. It's not just enough to come there. Swift rescue operation. That's what you find in other countries. As soon as it occurs, you have swift, rescue. Putting the fire off and then people trying to. But what we found yesterday was, people, good Samaritans coming to the scene and trying to assist. Some of them were even climbing, taking risk. That ought not to be. They have to be experts that should have gone there to the scene as soon as you're called and try to rescue people. I'm sure there are passengers who have survived, died because they were in proper rescue operation. This is sad. This is sad. And we have to do something, as I'm saying. It's not just enough to come here and to talk about it. There should be ways and ways. And I have said that, first of all, to begin with, Dana Airline, I'm sorry, should be suspended from flying for the time being. Second is that there should be a shake-up in FAN, shake-up in NCAA. The position should be advertised for competent people. The president has said that, look, these days you don't just make appointments, it should be advertised. So the jobs at FAN, the jobs at NCAA should be advertised in Delhi so that competent Nigerians, I'm sure you would like to apply to manage our aviation sector, because it is so poor. We're lamenting it. We can't continue lamenting it. And that is something that's going to happen.